Borada, welcome to the Rural Programme webinar. My name is Gemma Nurse and I'm Funding Manager here at the National Lottery Community Fund. We're now called the National Lottery Community Fund. We were formerly known as the Big Lottery Fund, just in case there's some confusion. This presentation will be in English, but this afternoon my colleague Rachel Richards will be presenting it in Welsh if you'd like to tune into that. That will start at 2 o'clock. This session will also be recorded and it will be available on our website, the same with the Welsh version as well. So I'm going to start off. The purpose of today is really to provide you with a bit more context of what the information tells you on the web page. Hopefully you'll find it useful. I'm going to start off with a presentation which will last about 15 to 20 minutes. My colleague is just putting it up onto the screen. This is available as a download if you need it. I'm going to crack on, and hopefully if you have any questions, feel free to type them in and my colleague will pick them up and I will work through those at the end of the presentation. So here we go. Not working. Can you get that to work? Okay. There we are, so apologies for the blip. So we're going to just start off with what the aim of the programme is. And it is about rural poverty. So if your project is looking to help those who are really struggling to meet their basic needs, so they may be struggling to have enough food, the accommodation may be really poor, or they may have a lack of access to services, then maybe this is the program for you. It is we know in this program is about tackling poverty in rural Wales. So it is, I will tell you later, it's looking at certain local authority areas. So in rural communities, the research out there shows that there, people can face a lot of different issues. It can be quite complex and multifaceted. So what we're looking for from applications, so people who want to apply, is for them to really understand the issues that are affecting people they want to help and to find ways to help change their lives. To get a feel of where we're coming from with this programme, you may be interested in looking at research which has been produced by the Wales Centre for Public Policy. This slide here gives you a link. You might want to look at the summary there. There's a summary which will probably take about half an hour to read, and it will give you an understanding of where we're coming from in terms of poverty. What we do know from is that people living in rural communities probably face issues around travel, ability to access services, maybe have limited job opportunities. They might be on low incomes. They might be have issues around isolation. All of those are relevant, and the projects that you may come up with may vary quite significantly and may be very bespoke. You may be looking at more than one solution depending on the needs of the people that you work with. We are very open-minded over the type of projects that we see at this stage. Obviously we can't fund anything that's statutory responsibility, so something that a local authority might provide. But if you have an idea, come and talk to us and we can give you a steer. So there are some priorities which this programme have. If you've looked at our website, you may have picked these up. This programme is about building partnerships. So we are looking for every applicant who wants to apply to be thinking very carefully about who they need to work with to find the solutions. Some of the research which I was referring to, the Wales Centre for Public Policy, they've identified that, enabling and making and improving on existing services and bringing organisations and people who can provide services together is a very good way of tackling this. So we are looking for your ideas to connect with what's going on out there. The second bullet point here is about making the most of learning. That may not come as a surprise. It's something that we look for with most of our programs, but in particular, we really want to learn from what you do. So we are looking for projects where they have built into it some evaluation and monitoring and willingness to share what they are learning. And we may even be able to share that back to those who are trying to build up more research about what works in terms of tackling poverty. We are interested in new ideas as well as perhaps ideas that you've tried before and you want to adapt. You know, so don't be shy in putting in something perhaps that you haven't had a previous experience in doing. We are interested, and you won't be looked on negatively by doing something that's different. The last bullet point is about lasting difference. And what we mean by this is basically that we want you to be thinking about the long-term future after our funding ends within the design of your project. We're happy for you to include those costs in the project. So for example, if you know that after our funding ends, you're going to need people to run the project, then building their skills to enable them to do it, then that would be an appropriate cost to include in your project. We will be asking for you in your application for you to say what change you're going to make and what your long-term vision will be. Sorry, I'm just okay. So just to pick up on a point which you probably, if you've applied to us before, you may be quite familiar with. We've talked a lot about so far in this presentation about bringing people and agencies and organisations together to look at the best solutions. But we're also needs your idea to be very much something that you have worked meaningfully with those who will benefit from the project. So you may have come across the phrase co-production, which is about where the people who will benefit from the projects are very much part of, they've told you what they want, and it may be your organisation, it may be you who are applying, and it's about them having an ongoing involvement in how it's delivered, and the future of how it runs. If you're not clear on that, by all means talk to us. There are some beneficiary groups that may not be able to take so much of a proactive role in that, so we do understand that. So it's please do talk to us. Some key facts about the programme. The maximum grant is 500,000. We have got no restrictions as to whether it's around capital or revenue. We're open-minded. We want you to apply for what you need. Obviously, with the restriction that we can't fund anything that's restricted to personal benefit, statutory responsibility. There is a list noted on our webpage if you need to just double check. The grants are up to 5 years. Don't feel obliged to apply for a 5-year project for a maximum grant. Put in for what you need. We're happy to receive grants of all shapes and sizes. You'll see that the programme budget is only 4 million. It doesn't go very far. If everyone applied for the maximum grant, then we would only be funding 8 projects. Use your own judgment. Eligible communities, as I referred to before, it is restricted to the most rural counties, so there are 9 in that we've selected. we are willing to consider a community perhaps that sits right on the border of these counties, but on the other side, and is considered very rural still. The broad definition is that we're looking at communities of less than 10,000 people, which I think is very flexible. But yeah, please do talk to us if you've got a project that's a community on a boundary where you want to apply. So who can apply? Third sector means community groups, social enterprises, any non-profit making organisation. But also we have, because we know that strategy services do have a role to play. It could be that they are the lead organisation too. It doesn't stop you working with private organisations as well, but they wouldn't be able to be the lead applicant, the person who puts the application into us. So you might be wondering why we're launching the programme now when the deadline is not until the 1st of October. We're doing it because we know that to do that work with the people who can benefit from the programme, that's probably going to take quite a bit of time. And also, to build your partnerships with people, that also takes quite a bit of time. So we wanted to give you as much opportunity to do this as possible. So hopefully by knowing about this now, you can crack on and start talking to us about your ideas. Previous funding, can we apply? The basic rule is if your project is about rural poverty, really tackling it, then really you're probably more suitable to the rural programme. If, however, you've had a more general project around well-being or community, and maybe you've had a smaller grant from people and places, then you may we would probably say that go back to the People and Places programme. But if it's not clear and you want us to guide you a bit better, give us a ring. So the decisions, once we will assess all the applications all together at the point of after the deadline of the 1st of October, and depending on how many apply, we will aim to give a decision before March the 31st. If there's only a few, we will do that sooner. The reason we're telling you the decision date is it's primarily for you to plan your project as well as for us to tell you when you get a decision. If you are, then think about your project, the timeframes. You would be looking to really start your project a couple of months after we've given you a decision. You have up to 6 months if we offer you a grant to start. So if this timeframe doesn't suit you, and your project is focused on poverty, you can still consider People and Places as a potential programme to apply to. So if you want information, obviously there's the stuff on the webpage. If you haven't got access to the internet, then we can send you information in the post or email it to you. If you're looking for a capital project, capital means building works, and perhaps you might be looking at some kind of landscaping. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but and then you need to just get where we can send you some extra information on the capital projects. So if you do decide you want to apply, there is a process for doing that. The first step is to from our webpage, get our email address and send us a brief synopsis of what you want to do. And there are 4 questions. I'm just going to flip over onto the next slide. They are very rudimentary. You just need to know a bit about your community, your plans, also services and the partners that you're planning to work with and how much you want. It doesn't need to be detailed, and equally, things might change. We just need a starting point. And what it does is it helps us kind of get our thoughts straight to it. And we will then once we've seen that, we will give you a ring or meet you in person, depending on what's best for you, and talk it through. And if we think it's something that is likely to fund, then we'll send you the application materials. They look like this, which is an organisation details form. That's just a very standard, who are the main contacts, a bit about your organisation, and when you want to start your project, and and then the beefier piece of work is your project plan, which we have got a basic template to guide you as to what we're looking for, but it will be up to you to how you want to present it to us. We're happy to receive it in different formats. You will need to fill in the budget table, which is an Excel spreadsheet which is embedded in the document. If you haven't applied to us before, or we haven't had contact with you in recent years, then provide your annual accounts. And then also, because you're working in partnership, we will need to see a draft partnership agreement, and that will give us information of how, what the relationship is and who will be doing what in your project. Okay. Nearly on to the last slide, and that's about how to get in touch with us. So you can ring us, you can email us, and the information's on our webpage, as I've said many times. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. It's now time for us to receive any questions you may have. And colleague is just having a quick look to see whether we have any questions. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions, and that's fine. Hopefully we've helped with this presentation to give you some understanding of what the programme's about. But yes, do get in touch with us. Now, the handout, the presentation that I've just given you is available as a handout here. You can print this off, and feel free to digest it. There are some notes against each of the slides that might be helpful. Anyway, that's me done. So it's been a pleasure being able to talk at you, and just give us a ring at the National Lottery Community Fund if you have any queries. Oh, a question's coming through. Hooray. That's very nice.
Do we need to provide match funding?
No match funding is required. We want to be as flexible as possible, but of course, if you do have match funding, well, that's brilliant. Just probably the key thing is making sure that the timeframes for using that money coincide with when you want to deliver or when you have to spend our money.
Any more? Do you want to just leave a second in case anyone wants to type?
Yeah, I'm just going to hang on a couple of minutes while we see if anybody else has got anything.
I can't see what they're typing. Oh, here's one. Is the whole of Carmarthenshire eligible, e.g. community first areas? Is consultant cost eligible?
All right. So Carmarthenshire, we haven't said specified. The only bits that the only communities that won't be eligible are those that are more have a population higher than 10,000. So really, we want to benefit those rural communities. So that's why the limit is there. In terms of consultant costs, it depends what you mean by consultant costs. If you're looking for somebody to develop your application for you and send it in, no, that wouldn't be eligible. But if you needed an expert to come and help with elements of your project, then there is a potential for that to be eligible. It really would depend on what the consultant would be doing.
We've got loads now.
Hey, you've got more questions. Wonderful.
Okay, so here's a new one. Is there a size restriction to organisations that can apply? Would you consider applications from national organisations? That's from Sarah.
A size restriction in terms of the maximum grant is 500,000. It may be that we would be a little bit flexible on that, depending on um, the circumstances. It would be something we'd have to talk to you about. But obviously, what you have to bear in mind in that circumstance is that, you know, if you put in for a larger grant and it's going to eat up quite a lot more of the budget, the committee, when they're making the decision, you know, I mean, obviously would have to take into account, you know, the fact that it would have a detrimental effect on potentially how many projects we could fund. Oh, sorry, the size of the
Yeah, she's
organisation.
saying, is there a size restriction to the organisation? Would you consider applications from
No,
national bodies?
no, there isn't a restriction on the size of the organisation who can apply. Sorry, I misinterpreted that.
No problem. Right, here's another one. Will there be another round after this one?
Unlikely. If we don't spend all of this 4 million, then we will look at what we do next, and there may be the potential for a further round. I should just say that our rolling programme, People and Places, will fund rural poverty projects. So that is always an option to you if the timeframes for this don't suit.
Right. Do applications have to be in partnership?
Yes, they do. The whole point of this program, and it distinguishes it from People and Places to a degree, although it is something that we ask for projects to be connected. This is about you know, looking at a community, or the people in the community telling you what you need, and then finding the best way to support them. If you know, I just can't imagine a circumstance where you wouldn't need to make some connection. We've not put any guidance on what the partnership looks like, but you know, so you know, it may just end up being two organisations. But if you think about the factors that affect somebody in poverty, they usually touch on a range of issues. So, for example, say a young family, they may not be, they may be in poverty because there isn't the transport, but it may also be connected with childcare issues. There may also be an issue around education and access to training. So what we want you to do is to really look at the person's needs, and then think about who may be able to help, and then build a partnership around that.
Okay. Uh, Jane wants to know, does People and Places fund schools?
That's a really interesting one. We haven't got a restriction saying they can't fund, they can't apply, but you know, and I guess they do have a very close link with a lot of a community, but the project would need to be seen as you know. So yeah, the answer is they're not excluded. So yes, they could potentially apply.
Okay. Alice wants to know, do you have any examples of the types of projects you would like to see?
Um, uh, we we will be putting on our website a film of one project that we funded in the first round, which does have quite a lot of you know, good features in it that we would like to see. That will be going up in the next month, so you can have a look at that. There is always a danger with us giving examples, because it might restrict your thoughts, because poverty is such a broad issue. You know, you can touch on things like food, fuel, transport. We would be reluctant to you know, guiding people too much, and put you know, because it might temper what you're looking to do. So yeah, there will be an example coming up soon. That's a short answer.
Okay. Here's one. Could we be in partnership as three local authorities bounding? Would partnerships need to include third sector or other partners?
There isn't. Um, Okay, so a partnership with 3 local authorities, that's absolutely fine. Would it need to include the third sector? Um, uh, I guess where there isn't a restriction that it does. I mean, obviously, we would be. But the most important element for us is that you've involved the community, and normally I guess what we find is that the third sector generally quite closely linked with the community as well, but no, we're not saying you have to have links with them. It needs to be the right partners for what it is that you want to deliver.
Would you fund a community pub, stroke cafe, stroke bunkhouse?
um I think, I mean, the key thing here with it is that it needs to be focused on tackling poverty. If the primary aim of your project is more to benefit the community as a whole and is not focused, because one of the key questions we will ask you is what change you will make to people living in poverty. If I'm struggling to see how a community pub, um, cafe, bunkhouse would do that strongly, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. It might be best to give us a ring around that, but if it has more of a benefit to the community as a whole and is not really embedded in tackling poverty, then you may be better looking at people and places. Okay, is that
Ask
it?
them if there's any more.
Is there any more questions? Sorry, I keep having to move my headphones. They block out all the noise, so I have to keep taking them off to hear my colleague. Okay, it looks like we probably are out of questions now. So thank you very much for listening. By all means, do get in touch, and hopefully we look forward to hearing from you. So.
We've got a comment from someone saying it's been very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you very much. It's the first time I've done this, so it's good to have positive feedback.
Thank you.
Uh,
Bye.
Bye bye.
21 people all the way through.
Hey, there we are.